What's up, you guys? It is a few nights before Thanksgiving, and I'm starting some of my Thanksgiving prep tonight. My kids just went to bed.
Bear, come on.
Bear, go lay down.
Come on, buddy.
We're getting ready to go lay down for the night, but first I'm gonna start a batch of beef bone broth. I just realized something. This is not the right. Okay, I have a bunch of these roaster ovens. I've taught you guys about roaster ovens before. I think they're kind of like a must-have for a homestead kitchen because, like, we live in this mobile home now and we have this really small oven. It's hard to fit anything big in there. And I don't even worry about it because I have roaster ovens. And so I've had a lot of questions about these because people ask, you know, they'll call them like toaster ovens. It's actually, it's not like a toaster oven that you would make, like bake something in, like breads or stuff like that. Though I think you could. And it's not like a crock pot exactly. It's like an oven, but it's deep like this. So it's great for soups, but you can roast meat in it. I usually make turkeys or hams in them, but my favorite use of a roaster oven is long, slow cooking something like bone broth. So this is what I use, and I just realized that this is actually the wrong insert. I actually think I'm gonna use it anyway right now because this is a 24 quart, this is a 22 quart, 18, 20, I don't know. Anyway, it's a little too big. This is actually the thing that goes in the bigger one, but I'm gonna turn it on, it'll be fine, it'll cook. And then tomorrow I'll go get the right one and transfer it over. It's just like 28 degrees outside. I don't want to go out there. And my other roaster ovens are out in my shed. I'm going to load this up, move it on this back counter. What I like to do, and the reason I like roaster ovens so much for making bone broth, which by the way, I have a blog post about making bone broth. I will link it down below if you want to go bookmark it. So if you're not going to do this right away and you want to reference back in the instructions, it might be easier to see them in writing. I have lots of things on my blog that are like that, recipes and instructions, so you don't have to dig back through 1,000 videos to try to find something that I talked about in a vlog once. The reason I like roaster ovens for making broth is that broth develops such a better flavor after the bones have been roasted. And what you can do is roast them in your oven, probably in batches, and then you can then transfer them into a pot, cover them with water, and then simmer them, long simmered on your stove. But that's more stuff to clean, and I am all about finding ways to clean less things in my life. And then also, then you've got your stove tied up. Now, we cook a lot from scratch. We cook multiple meals a day sometimes. And so I don't need my stove tied up with a big pot. Bone broth takes typically 24 to 48 hours, depending on how long you want to let it simmer. And that's very inconvenient when you cook a lot from scratch. So with a roaster oven, I can put my bones in, roast them for an hour or so on, you know, 350 degrees, and then I can bump the heat down to the lowest setting, cover them with water. I put a splash of apple cider vinegar in, and then let it simmer for 24 to 48 hours. I can move it over to the table and let it sit there. If it's hot and you have like a covered patio, I mean, I've made many batches of bone broth out on my back porch because it's out of the way, which is really nice. So I'm using these beef bones that I have here. I bought these online. If you Google like beef bones for broth, there are lots of places that ship meat that you can buy them from. This is a place called Seven Sons, and I make a lot of broth, so I actually have these on auto ship right now while we are not yet butchering our own cows. Now we have 2 steers that are about a year old, so we've got a ways to go, but once we have our own, I won't buy them elsewhere anymore. My favorite way to get bones for broth is to find a local farmer and find somebody that you just can build a relationship with. I think it's always best to work with local farmers when you can find them. I just haven't found a source yet of grass-fed beef bones that I could buy a lot from. One of the big endeavors that I've been undertaking this year is healing my gut, and drinking lots of bone broth is very, very beneficial for healing your gut. and with my skin blowing up, with having really bad eczema and health issues this year, that has put gut health at the top priority, and bone broth has been a big part of that. So I've made broth a lot and have been using a lot of it. And I'm going to continue to do that, but that's why I have bones on auto ship. And I just I don't even stick them in the freezer. What I do is when they come in, I just immediately go get the roaster ovens and start the broth. And then that way I'm making, you know, gallons every month, and I'll put some in the freezer, some in the fridge, and then I'll can some and put it in the pantry. And then I don't ever feel like hesitant to use it. I always want to have enough that I'm able to use it. All right, so I've got about 10 pounds of bones in here, and I am going to cover these with water up to the top after I roast them. But right now, literally just throwing them in here. I don't put anything on them at this point. I typically don't heavily season my bone broths on the front end. Now, if I'm gonna just drink it, I'll put lots of seasoning in it. But I prefer to not have seasoning in it so that if I'm cooking something that I don't want to make saltier or whatever, I have the control. So right now, 350 degrees on this thing, and we're gonna go watch a show or something and just wind down. And before we go to bed, I'll come out here and put water over this in about an hour. I just want to allow those bones to get a little roasty to have flavor. It's now a little over an hour later. You can see the color now that these bones have after being roasted for this short period of time. That's going to add so much flavor and depth to the broth. All right, so now I'm going to turn this down to 150, which is kind of the lowest, and cover these with water. I'm also going to put a splash of apple cider vinegar in here, a couple tablespoons. That helps break down like the marrow and helps more collagen end up in your broth. Now, a lot of people will ask about putting vegetables and stuff in bone broths. Now, if I'm making like a short simmered broth, I just put vegetables in on the front. So like if I roasted a chicken and I've got the carcass and I'm wanting to make soup for dinner, I'll simmer that carcass in water with vegetables for, you know, the afternoon. For bone broth like this, beef bone broth, where I am long simmering bones for 48 hours, I do not put vegetables in. Maybe if I want to do that, I do it towards the end, like the last handful of hours. But vegetables can get kind of weird, and the flavor can get kind of weird if you simmer them for 2 days. So I usually just do bones for this because I'm really doing this for the collagen and for the health benefits, more than necessarily for the flavor. I do like to roast them for flavor, but I might add in some onions and celery and carrots like maybe 6 hours before I plan on stopping the cooking. There we go. It's time for me to go to sleep. I'll see you guys in the morning. Alright guys, next morning, let's take a check on this broth. Oh, look at that. It's starting to smell really good. Actually, I should note, when you make broth, it's the weirdest thing. Because it is very, like, fragrant. This actually hasn't really kicked up yet, being super fragrant. Excuse the crunching sound. Bear is enjoying a snack over there, if anybody's wondering what that is. But it's the weirdest thing when you're long simmering, because like tonight, in the middle of the night, like you wake up in the middle of the night and you smell this really strong like beef smell. And it's weird. It's kind of off-putting, honestly. I have had multiple people say that they don't like making broth because they think it stinks. I don't think that it stinks. I think that, you know, I mean, it is a very strong beef smell. The thing that's weird about it is you're not used to waking up at 3 or 4 in the morning and smelling beef in your house. So I don't think it smells bad, but it is definitely weird. This is starting to smell, but you can see here we're getting some good, you know, fat floating at the top. That's good. So this is going to keep going until tomorrow. And I probably won't end up canning any of this. What I do at the end is just strain that out, I usually set up a pot, put the strainer on it, and just ladle it in. Depending on what bones you have that are left over, like these are really big beef bones. Like sometimes I will feed some like very cooked down soft bones to pigs. Some of those are like the big like joint bones, and I probably won't give those to the pigs. We really don't throw away very much. Like usually we'll throw things in the compost or do different things, but with those there's just not a whole lot that I have found to do with them. If you have a suggestion, I'm totally open to it. But like chicken, if I do chicken broth, bone broth with chickens, those will go to the pigs because they're so soft after they've cooked for 2 days that there's no concern. But yeah, strain it out, and then usually I let it cool. If I'm gonna can it, the fat cap, I'll go ahead and usually let it cool off and then ladle a lot of that fat off because you don't want to can a ton of fat. And then if I'm cooking with it, sometimes I leave a good deal of that fat in because it's good for you. So yeah, that's bone broth. A lot of that's going to be used for Thanksgiving because with making gravies and dressings and all that stuff, like anywhere where I need to use broth, I'll use that. Little side note, look at this. The Morans have been laying, and it is very dark and lovely. And there's my water glassed eggs looking good. We're gonna crack those open and see how it did here soon. They've been in here for 4 or 5 months, so pretty cool. But yeah, I'll put a link to this down below on the blog. I'm actually also putting up my turkey recipe today, so that will be up for you guys. And that's going to go out in our email. So if you're not already signed up for our email list, make sure that you get signed up, and then the post will be up on the blog. So thank you guys for hanging out with me today. God bless you. Until next time.